Testing. Testing. Again. Testing. Oh, wait. Again. Testing. Oh, wait. Okay, so I think I have fixed it. But the the video on XSplit and the video on YouTube are like about several seconds apart. So yeah, I don't know if that's normal. If it's not, I'm not really sure how to fix it. But yeah, I'm not sure how to fix that. I think a lag is perhaps normal for YouTube. So I think a lag is perhaps normal for YouTube. So I think a lag is perhaps normal. Do I hear? Okay. Do you hear an echo? There's a lag. There's definitely a lag, and when I clicked out of YouTube, the echo for me disappeared. Okay, good. No echo for you. Um, so that's the last thing I need to correct. Or I don't even know if it's possible to correct. So yeah, I'm just gonna go with it because I think that the lag is normal. So anyway, um, so apparently the question is, and this is kind of, I don't know how long I'm going to be on here. Um, I'm gonna. I really didn't plan any discussion other than at least trying to get this thing up and running. That because I usually don't do well when I try to do a live stream. So somebody had asked about Obama and Pablo. So unfortunately, the answer to that's not exactly a very long one. Um, as I had said before in the videos, I was in and out of the cartels. Sometimes just arguments. Sometimes just wanted to get away, or other parts of my life. I had other friends. I had my American friends, and then I had the cartel friends, and so I was in and out of that. I mean, you really couldn't take a whole heck of a lot of. Well, they could. I don't know how they did this. Did what they did day in and day out. Other than they had a mission. They had a mission, and for me, it was hard to take because I knew what their mission was, and their mission was to eliminate Americans and eventually have a Hispanic takeover. So I got to thinking about it today, and it's when the when you have a situation like that where you're eliminating the American population, the Caucasian population, naturally you're going to have a vacuum. And of course, what's going to take the place in that vacuum is going to be the African American community and the Hispanic community. And I really didn't make the connection until today that that's pretty much what is happening, you know, in South Florida. So with I had gone to school. For those of you who are following, you know the history. I had come out, had almost been assassinated, and the one they sent in to assassinate me was actually Obama, and that was the one that is identified as Griselda Blanco. She's actually Griselda Blanco the second, and hopefully you know. I don't know if you know the history, but I'm gonna check real quick and see if there's anything different going on YouTube than in live stream. And I know I'll be getting an echo, but I want to double check. See what on YouTube than in live stream. Okay, good. And I know I'll be getting an echo. Clicking back out of it. So it was after the birth certificate identity. You know, we were well on the way into the forgery of his identification. The birth certificate. Okay, I need to backtrack a little bit. My mother was from Arizona. My father was military in Tucson, Arizona. So my mom was in Tucson, Arizona. That's where they met. They married within 3 weeks. Eventually, they moved to Florida, and my mother could not stand to hear the word, the N word. If as a child, even before I had met my brother, if we ever used that word, if we ever tried to, the locals would use that word. And if I or my brothers ever tried to use that word, my mom would line us up. Even if just one of us used that word, my mother would line all 4 of us up. She would take hot sauce, a teaspoon of hot sauce, and she'd put it, she'd make us not swallow it. We'd put it in the mouth. It would have to sit there. She would time it. 5 minutes. This was we didn't, we didn't have soap to the mouth, and they tried to avoid spanking. So our punishment was hot sauce. So we'd have to hold it there for 5 minutes. And so I just, growing up, it was just a word that it's just like, the F word. I was certainly not allowed to use that word. And, same situation. If we ever used that word, it would be the hot sauce. My grandmother didn't like the GD word, so, that was another one we were conditioned not to use. I mean, so when I was doing the birth certificate, Negro or the N word, that was taboo. I had been conditioned not to use that, and had been going to Palm Beach Community College. So, you kind of go from a agricultural community, back into something I was more comfortable with, having grown up, having spent the first 3 years of my education in Titusville. So, so I when I went back to school, I felt more comfortable. I felt more like I was in my true element. So, of course, when you do, when you have social studies, where my brother was from, Kenya, was Africa. So when I filled out that part of his birth, the blank birth certificate, I put I'm pretty sure I put an African, and of course that's how people identify. One of the elements that is obviously forgery, proving it as forgery is because that was certainly not a term used, and that was a term I used in the summer of 1985. So here's what happened. Pablo, I was called out to Montura once again, and Pablo was sitting. See, they would move the dining room table. Sometimes the dining room table would be in the kitchen. Other times it would be in the living room, and because the kitchen was relatively small, and they'd move it into the living room where they would gather and they'd play poker. So on this one particular night I came in, there was a bunch of African American men standing, not standing, they were sitting, and Pablo was asking me, Nani, why you use this word? Why you say African? He say, they don't use this word on their birth certificate. Why you use this? And I told him, I told him, I said, because I'm not allowed to use that word. See, nobody had, not to the best of my knowledge, people other than my mother, people didn't have a problem using that word. But although quite often when it was used, it was, how would you describe it? It was derogatory, derogative, whatever, demeaning. Good, there's the word, demeaning. It was had a demeaning tone to it, again, which irritated my mother every time she heard it. So he say, why you do this? So, and I told him that about my mother, and he said I guess he didn't believe me. I don't know. And I looked at him and I said, well, you call my mama. You call her in here. She tell you. And my mom was brought out. And so of course she didn't know what she had been called out. So I just thought I just pretended like Pablo and I were having a general conversation, and I used the N word. And she got so upset, and if I recall correctly, she smacked me on the shoulder, and I was, because I was having fun with it, So when she smacked me, I'm like, ow, ow, don't hit me, mama, don't hit me, mama, Because I knew what kind of reaction it would get, and and part of it was in show about Pablo. My mom really doesn't like me using that word, and so he accepted it. See, there were a lot of problems with the birth certificate. One of which was when Olivia and I had gone to Hawaii. And I looked in the fish films, as I had been taught when I was in studying journalism, for births of a male child that matched his. I tried to come close. His birth, he's either August the 4th, but really born on the 5th, or August the 5th, really born on the 4th. I think he's on the 5th. Don't hold me to that. And then the fish film, I could only find, again, don't hold me to this, was the 4th. And so that was part of the issue about making this new identity, was the fish film only had the middle letter as an H. Well, later on, maybe even before, and again, this will be in my book, this is going to be in my movie script. We had, I was at the door with Olivia, and I'm like, okay, there's a problem here, because in the fish film there was only an H. And I'm like, what do we do about this H situation? And so she suggested that his middle name be Hussein. And I was like, Okay, but why Hussein? I mean, everybody at the time knew who Hussein was, or had at least heard it or knew it was he was controversial. And she said to me, because he is America's number one enemy, and therefore, she didn't say this second part, but it was, if he's an enemy of America, then he is a friend of ours. So that's how the Hussein portion of it came to be. So getting back to it, so Pablo was, and again, because I had made the Stanley mistake, there was starting to be a lot of questions. I mean, I'm not a professional forger. I've never forged an identity prior to this, and I don't think I ever did forgeries after that. They took it upon themselves to start getting Hawaiian birth. Back then, when they did your birth certificates, they ripped it out of a book which had been held together by glue. And then on this particular case, this is a pretty strong memory, so I'm going to pretty much stand behind it. That this book had 50 pages to it, and I do recall something about it being the last page torn out. So that's why there's a gap between the birth certificates, and I can't explain the gaps on the other gaps, other than more than likely they would have gone back to Hawaii and purchased more blank certificates. So that's how the Who say that. So it began to be a question of, when I was doing the birth certificate, it was a white man's birth certificate that I was following, and that's where the Stanley error came in. I didn't think about getting someone's birth certificate who's black. It just simply didn't occur to, he's human. He's human. He didn't get into the cartel until pretty much late in the game. And this was after I had identified. I didn't tell people that I had another brother, and it wasn't until later, I want to say 81 or 82, when I made a comment to a friend of mine as we were passing the ice cream shop. I think it was Baskin Robbins 31 flavors, and then they later added like 2 more. But at the time that he was working at the ice cream shop in Clewiston, I think it was 31 flavors. So I had told her, I said, I've never, Donna, I've never told anybody this, but I have another brother, and he works over there in the ice cream shop, and I don't, I probably told her that he was black, and so it was a surprise when about a week later she showed up to the door with my brother. So he wasn't a part of what was going on until like 81 or 82. So the things that went on in the cartel would not be. They would be I don't want to use the word alien because that gets into I don't want to. If I ever use the word alien, it's simply an alien from another country. It's not coming from outer space or anything like that. Although UFOs are simply unidentified flying objects. It doesn't mean that they're coming from Mars or Jupiter or whatever. So, yes, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. He's got the same red blood like we all do. So, I hope you're joking in that question. He's human. He's certainly human, and this cartel world would have been very let's see if I can find another word for alien, because I don't like getting confused with that. It would not have been a world that he was accustomed to. There we go. It was not a world that he would have been accustomed to. So yeah. So anyway, Pablo was, when he saw my mother's natural reaction when I used that word, he no longer had any question about why I used that word. Because like I said, you have to tread very carefully. You do your best not to. Very early on, I had to, because I was constantly being abused by Dias. I had to, I wanted to be allied with Pablo and worked very hard to be allied with Pablo. But as I kept watching and knowing that, people were disappearing, some of the girls that I went to high school with, they're being sold into slavery. And one or two, I even said, look, this one here is suitable for doing assassinations. They're mowing the lawn out there, so y'all will hear some background noise. They've got a way to do a noise suppression, but I don't want to screw anything up. I'm lucky to have gotten this far. So one of those that can't walk and chew gum. So when he saw my mom's natural reaction, he was convinced. I mean, there was no attempt to fail in making the birth certificate. I made mistakes, yes. Of course, being nervous, I made the Stanley mistake, and part of what I also brought into question was because the other individual who had signed the birth certificate signed. It's really ironic because here's a Hawaiian birth certificate, and he used the word ukulele. You could just barely see it, but Olivia, she was pretty sharp. She caught it immediately. So it wasn't just the mistakes that I was making, it was the things that how other people were signing them. Now, of course, Pablo would have logically surmised that this other individual should have signed his name like he would normally sign it and not ukulele. So I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like, yeah, okay. So yeah, the birth certificate was a mess. I mean, it was not perfect by any means, and they were constantly having questions about, are you really trying to help out with this identity? Which I was. I didn't intend to make the Stanley mistake. It was just simply nerves. I didn't intend to on the African, because I just never used those other words, even Negro. I mean, I'm not even comfortable using that. Colored just doesn't seem right, because they come from initially from Africa. Africans seem perfectly. I mean, it was great. I mean, it fit. I thought, I didn't see any problem with it. So, no, Joe Biden, not to my knowledge, ever. What happened was, there's 4 parts to Gorbachev. There was the initial meeting that I had with Gorbachev, where I introduced my brother, who had the birth certificate or birth mark on his hand. That was the first, and he was recruiting teenagers. Include Pablo had given him permission to start recruiting some of his us for KGB missions, and it was bad enough what I was seeing with Pablo. And so here is this. I mean, he was in full uniform, full uniform, out there in Montura. And, I can't say that I identified the uniform as KGB, but it certainly wasn't American, and his language certainly wasn't American. I mean, he could speak English quite well, but, there's always that accent there. And, so that's I'm writing about it. That's part one. The second part was me going to Russia. I assume it was Russia, meeting other generals. Now these other generals did not like me, and I got very. Gorbachev had told me that if you feel uncomfortable, we'll leave. And so when some of the generals started out talking nice and no problem, what have you. And then as Gorbachev kept talking in his language, obviously I didn't know what he was saying. They became more and more suspicious of me. And I remember one general in particular just saying something or the other, and I grabbed Gorbachev's left arm and I pulled him close, and I was like, let him know I don't want to be here any longer. I'm not feeling comfortable. Can we get out of here? So that's the second part. The third part is where Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, he was around at this time. I was basically courting Kuklinski, but not in a romantic way. He and I were on the highway, and it was, okay, you prove to me that you can kill, that you have no problem killing, because I hadn't seen him kill up until this time, and I'll prove to you, he did a kill on Highway 27. I don't recall, I really don't remember it. And so it was, okay, so now it's my turn to prove to you I'm quite capable of killing. So, again, that's the lawnmower. I hope it doesn't, I'm going to give it a few moments to pass. It's pretty loud. I can see my, the bars of my volume going on, So, every Friday they come and they mow the lawns. Do a really good job. Really, really good job. All right, people. So it became my turn, and I don't know if I intentionally, began driving. Yeah, I think I began driving like I was drunk, swerving to the right, swerving to the left. And of course I attracted a cop. It was a Henry County Sheriff cop. And he pulled us over, and I got out with a gun, and I shot and killed him. Now I know who he is. Charles Roseboom had the theater at this time. This was his cousin. And in fact, you know what? In fact, he had been dating a woman that I had been a roommate with for a while. I'm not going to mention her name because, anyway, he had been dating someone that I had been a roommate with. So he knew me, I knew him. And Kuklinski freaked out and immediately went to payphone across the street and, called in his handlers and said, this is what's going on. So somehow I don't recall the events in between this and me knowing that I needed to get rid of Gorbachev, but I remember I contacted Kuklinski's handlers, and I told, and I said, this was also in a payphone, and I said, I don't like what I'm seeing down here. I had tried to reach out to them once before for help. So, and I don't think it was Whitey Bulger. I think it was the other one, John Gotti. And John Gotti initially was like, well, I'm not going to help you. And here's what I said to him. Well, then you're not my God. You're not my master, my Lord or master God. You're not my God, I think. You're not my master. It might have been, you're not my master then. And so apparently, I guess that must have jarred him or into action. And so the next time with Gorbachev was Bush, Phil McConnell, and another one. Real tall. And I think he was killed. In the middle of the night, I set it up to where, Gorbachev, I usually, to give him sexual relief, I usually would go out to Manchura. And at this particular time, I told him I couldn't come in for whatever reason. I didn't have transportation. I don't remember what excuse I did. And so I told him, meet me at the graveyard. I think it was either 3, probably 4 o'clock. Meet me at the graveyard at 4 o'clock. And it was, down there at the lake, in the lake, and you've got the swamp to the south, you got the lake to the north, so you have agricultural fields filled with water, so you have a lot of humid fog. Okay, let's suffice it to say, the conditions for fog were pretty constant. Usually in those hours of the morning, it's very foggy. So I had already alerted certain individuals. I don't know. I don't think it was Bush. I know Bush was there. I think it was. It's a really good question. I don't remember. All I know is that I saw Gorbachev coming out of the fog. And I don't know if we walked. We were somehow we were across the street across the canal. That's when George Bush showed up, Phil McConnell, and this other really tall guy. And I wish I could remember him, because there's something about. Anyway, so immediately they took this one down, and it turns out he was just I knew immediately. George Bush is standing there, and he turns to me on his right side, and he says, "Nancy, is this Gorbachev?" And I said, "Yeah," but it wasn't. I knew it wasn't, because I didn't know if this was some kind of this. I didn't know if it was a setup by Henry County. I didn't know if it was a setup by your mafia guys or by Bush's guy. I just automatically. Oh yeah, I knew the Iceman. I just automatically said yes, although I knew it was an actor. So that was 3. 4 was shortly very after this. Hillary Clinton, George Bush, a George Bush body look-alike, body double, and a few other people. We were there where I had killed Vince Foster. This must have been, was it? I don't remember if this was before I killed Foster or if it was after I killed Foster. I think it had to have been before. because 1983 was Foster. And I've been saying he was 81 or 82, but he was more like 83. So yeah, Bush looked at me and he says, is this, I don't know if he used the word Gorbachev, is this the guy? And I said, yes. So they killed him. Okay, see, this is what Phil McConnell wants to hold on to. He thinks that he's part of the crew that killed the real Gorbachev. Well, he's not. That was a body double. I mean, a very, very convincing body double. And so, as I said, the fourth time was in the same building where I later killed Vince Foster. And the two Bushes, identical twins. See, I think George Bush had a twin. Clinton was there, and Gorbachev, the real Gorbachev. And so I thought, well, maybe they're going to kill him, or what have you. And that's not what happened. They sent me Gorbachev. Oh yeah, and one of the Bushes, either the body double or one of the real Bushes, I don't know. The Bush guy was driving. I wonder if this was Bush. Gorbachev was in the front right seat, and I was in the back. And they were taking me out to Pablo's compound. Well, it was all, because see, this was Pablo's friend, so it was obvious to Pablo that I had set this guy up. And so the way I see it is I was being sent to my death for, clearly being sent to, it was not going to end up good. And I went into, I kind of went into a psycho mode, and I because when I get into a killing mode, my voice, I go very deep, because men don't respond to females, and so if you can lower your voice, go deep, that's what I did. And I sat up from the back seat, and I went into my deep voice, and I said, "This is the real Gorbachev." And the guy, the Bush guy was drunk, and he's like he's holding on the steering wheel, and he's like looking back at me, and he's looking at Gorbachev, and he's drunk, and so the vehicle went off of the side of the road. Well, there was more that took place. I tried to shoot the Bush guy. That one ran into the woods. Because I had to now make nicey with Gorbachev, because I was pretty much screwed at this point. So then Volin, and I'm pretty sure it was Biden and Volin pulled up. And I didn't even know Biden was there at the compound. The Everglades Park has so I didn't know that they were even there. And so here they come up, and Volin's like, he's trying to arrest me, and I'm like telling him, this is the real, certain events took place before and after. I convinced them that this man's a danger and you need to shoot him, and it was Biden that took the shot. Biden didn't set it up. None of Well, I guess I have to give credit, credit where credit's due. At least George Bush was there, thinking that he was taking down the real Gorbachev. Phil McConnell thinking he was taking down the real Gorbachev. But I questioned that dinner afterwards where, wow, I don't know. Did Gorbachev pretend to be the body double? I mean, I guess that would have been about his only play, I guess. I came into that dinner later. The other ones had already been there. So yeah, I don't know. So that was the fourth and final time or fifth and final time with Gorbachev. Um, so I'm the one that took down Gorbachev when Reagan, however many years later, said Gorbachev take down the wall and showed this Gorbachev with a birthmark on his head. That was not the real Gorbachev. So yeah, and yes, the Iceman. The Iceman was there. I met Whitey Bulger. I met, I'm pretty sure, John Gotti, because I was supposed to kill Whitey Bulger. And I met Sam the Bull. I was raped by him going into the compound. I was searched by him, and I was cocky. Did they know? Anyway, so I think I have successfully done this video for the first live video, and yeah, and so the question: did Joe Biden touch you, or did something else to you, like sexually? Not that I can recall. I was drugged several times. Anything's possible, but no. I do not, at this time, I do not recall ever being raped, abused, molested, or anything by Joe Biden. However, having said that, again, you have to give credit where credit's due. It was a group effort. To quote 10th Kingdom, it was a great group effort. Could not have done it alone. Bye-bye, as he runs off with his mirror. I don't know if y'all have ever seen 10th Kingdom. I just absolutely love that movie. It's a pretty long one. So, yeah, but the problem is that Phil McConnell, like Mike Zullo, like Mike Boland, like Sharon Rondeau, like Arpaio, and blah, 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 so many other, but that they want to pretend I don't even exist. Yeah, she orchestrated what eventually was the downfall or murder of Gorbachev, but we don't know who she is. Yeah. So anyway, I think I've done quite well. I mean, pat myself on the back. I think I have done a successful live stream, and now that I've kind of got got it tweaked, I hope I can. I hope I don't have the same problems, because usually I would have given up by now. But yeah, so I am going to shut this broadcast off. It's August the 20th of 2021, approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Florida time. Y'all have a good one. If I can get it shut off.